All right, so this is going to be my presentation for the Canadian Ship Direct project that I guess, alluded to in my actual project. I guess forgive me. It's funny, I actually give quite a few face-to-face presentations, but I guess talking to a webcam is maybe even a little bit more different than talking to a group of people. So let's go ahead and get started. So you'll have my PowerPoint presentation to kind of go off of, and I'll just kind of read it as I go along. So a couple of big items behind this. Working at Bobcat, there's definitely a huge need to ship parts for skid steers and other construction equipment to Canada. Canada goes through a lot of construction equipment. There's a lot of oil production in Canada. A lot of different projects that go on up there that do require Bobcat equipment, heavy machinery, things of that nature. So one of the big needs that we identified as a ship direct department when we identified the issue at hand was customs paperwork, and that was just an absolute killer. Kind of the issue at hand was that there was an old process that nobody really looked at. Why were we doing it this way? It was just kind of, oh, we always did it this way, so we just kind of accepted that. So one of the big things that I looked at was, okay, this is the issue. Kind of put myself in the shoes of a Canadian customer where, okay, I need this today, and it's not going to get here for 7 days longer than a normal shipment would take. So really identifying that issue is kind of what started this whole process. But to go ahead and get started, the current process, the customer places an order. The order is received by the supplier. So essentially what that means is that a customer says, okay, hey, I need this part, and this part. That order gets received by our supplier. So let's say we have a deal with Bosch Automotive, and Bosch makes the part that the customer is looking for. Bosch will receive the order. We fill the order, they pay us, but instead of it coming from one of our warehouses, it comes directly from Bosch in our packaging to the customer. The way that works right now is that it gets sent to Chicago. We have a big warehouse in Chicago, Illinois. At that facility, they have two designated individuals that do customs paperwork. So essentially, they created a couple of different tags for the product, and then they get the weights and all the other stuff that they look for at the Canadian border to accept it into the country. You have a 24-hour window once that happens. So once the time it takes to get to Chicago, the time it spends in Chicago, and the time it sends to the Canadian border, you're looking at an additional 5 to 7 days. So that's just completely wasted time. 7 days that the customer could have had it. Really just completely unfavorable situation. So as you can see, the issues with the current process are that customers, again, have that additional weight. There's an additional shipping cost. So instead of shipping it directly from the supplier to the customer, we're now looking at shipping it directly from the supplier to now our Bobcat in Chicago, and then from Chicago sending it to the Canadian border, and then from the Canadian border sending it to the end customer. And so really just doesn't even make any sense from all parties. There's additional labor dedicated to having two individuals at our Chicago warehouse. That's a little bit of a split. So those are two individuals that, if they didn't have this customs paperwork dedicated, I guess, jobs, they would be doing other work like picking and packing and other things that could maybe contribute to productivity, maybe speed up some of our lead times. Really, the possibilities are endless, but at this point, they're just caught up doing paperwork. Really, it's a mindless paperwork job that we really shouldn't need them for. And then you're looking at other competitors. So, although I didn't divulge into it, is Caterpillar doing that? How are they doing it? How are other heavy machinery, how are other companies that are more maybe in tune with the 21st century, how are they shipping out these products faster? Or are they even? So those were a couple of different things that we kind of had to keep in mind when we were looking at this. So a proposed solution was creating, Bobcat uses SAP software. And so anyone who's familiar with SAP is that it really is what you make it. So you have an IT team You have all different kinds of business analysts that work together to kind of create SAP to work as the company needs it as an individual. So what we were looking at was a software add-on to allow for Canadian customs paperwork generation. And this was definitely something that we would be able to do as long as we took the right steps, had the right information in there, and kind of had the right pulls. So essentially when a customer places an order, that it would pull a ticker to allow us to kind of identify some of those things. In addition to that solution, we were looking at testing a new process that would ensure feasibility. So is this even possible? Is this going to be reliable? Are we going to get good results from this? So that was another big, key that we were looking for when doing this. Ultimately, we wanted the ability to track these metrics, which we absolutely were able to do with Microsoft Excel, with SAP, with a lot of different reports that run off of which parts get sold, which suppliers sell them. And then we were looking at, okay, is this going to be a permanent solution if it's successful? So the timeline's 16 months. We've identified the issue. The biggest thing was I had my team in ShipDirect Research Solutions. And that's how we ended up coming up with the addition to SAP. That seemed like the best solution. It seemed like that's definitely how we would want to do this. Proposing the solution was easy. Now testing and implementing the solution, it gets a little bit difficult because now you're looking at spending a couple of months with IT, business analysts, the planners, the suppliers, and then getting the customer feedback. IT has other projects, business analysts have other jobs. It's definitely something where it definitely required an all hands on deck type approach. So that's where the 16-month timeline came in, because it was something that was not going to happen overnight, although we wished it could. So figuratively speaking, if we were to say that the project started today, we're August 2016, what we would want to do right away is identify why we're here. What changes need to be made. And of course, the change is that we're doing something that's a little bit backwards. How can we go directly from supplier to customer and create a genuine ship direct? Mapping out the current process, that was pretty easy to do. I do it every day. Going to Chicago was definitely a different experience. So going there and actually seeing how they do it, what they do there, and how we can maybe move that process to a computer type format here in Bismarck, North Dakota. So that was invaluable information. So by comparing and contrasting those maps, we figured out exactly what we would need to do to be able to implement this new strategy, this new process going forward. So that took about 2 months. So looking at the end of September. So now looking at October through January in the 16-month window, setting up a rough draft. So putting those ideas together that, okay, if everything worked out smoothly, this is how we would end up implementing this at project's end. If the software changes went as predicted and didn't create any other issues with any other process, this is how it would look at project's end. The biggest thing would be creating customs paperwork locally and creating a true ship direct. Again, a true ship direct being identified as shipping directly from the supplier to the end customer. Now, moving forward to February and then to June, so again, as we get closer to the end of that 16-month window, continuing to consult with Chicago staff, IT staff, aftermarket staff, so the people in my department, to make sure that as we're adding these functions to SAP, as we're test running packages from the supplier to the customer, okay, is accounting getting the right material? Are the planners getting the right material? Are we in ShipDirect getting the right material? Are the customers having any issues? Is the time actually going down shipment-wise? Is our logistics fees going down? All attention to detail items that we were able to test, look at, review, get some feedback from each party. So by checking that work, we were able to definitely take that information and apply that towards that. So make a couple tweaks here and there, maybe change the code a little bit in what we did with SAP. So towards the end of those 16 months, looking at a soft run. So getting 2 to 3 suppliers, probably large, a couple large ones and then a small one, and then a couple large customers and a smaller customer. Running some running some test things. So, okay, you're going to need some tires for the winter. Just order them. We're going to try it this way. Let's see how it works out. And then kind of using them as a little bit of the play. Finding out maybe what are some of the issues that we're going to have, communicating that to the team, communicating that to aftermarket, seeing whether or not, okay, are the planners going to need to change something? Is accounts receivable going to need to change something? Are we as a ship direct team going to need to change anything? Ultimately, if everything goes to schedule, at the end of the 16 months, we can have a go live date. In this case, January 1st, 2018. If we were going 16 months from August of 2016, which we are right now, we would be presenting to a leadership team so that, hey, look, it's August, January 1st, we're going live. So we're looking from August to January, educating staff, educating the suppliers, educating all the people involved, so that by then, if there's no issues, if our test runs are still running fine, if we don't have any IT issues, if there's nothing wrong with SAP, we can go live and then begin the metrics process, where once we're in the metrics process, we can look at identifying, okay, how much money are we actually saving? How much money how much labor are we down on now? Has moving those two people from the specifics of just this customs paperwork, moving them back to the floor to do what their coworkers do, has that proven beneficial? Those are all things that we're going to look at. Are the customer satisfaction rates going up? Are customers receiving their product faster? Are suppliers getting paid faster? Those are all things that we want to look at. Those are all things that SAP can report. Those are all things that can be transferred to Excel. We can run macros. We can do all kinds of fun stuff with that to figure that out. Going forward, those are going to be things that we want to identify. So those are things that I would present to my leadership team, to my operations manager, to their senior leadership. The stakeholders even would get that. So in conclusion, the project has nowhere to go but up. As long as the due diligence is done, as long as the right people are consulted, by the time that this is all said and done, there'll be a brand new process that'll be in the 21st century. It'll grant more ownership to the Ship Direct team, which it should, because it's a Ship Direct process. And overall, it's going to save the company money. It's going to give us more workforce in Chicago. It's going to make our customers happy. It's going to get people paid faster. All in all, it's one of those crucial key components to making the business better. And I think when you're a company as big as Bobcat Company is, it's very important to be taken seriously, and this was a great step in the right step going forward. So thanks for listening, and I hope that kind of shores up some of this. Yeah, thanks, and have a great night.